You guys ever feel like when you're getting into a game that the better you get at it, the less options you have because acquiring skill in the game means that you are sort of eliminating all of the bad decisions that crop up throughout the game. But a lot of times, those bad decisions were something that interested you in the game in the first place. So while you're enjoying this one sort of growth path of I enjoy getting better at the game, you're sort of losing some of the options you had, some of the things that interested you in the game before that. Like, for example, in Slay the Spire, I'm playing the game. I quickly learn that generally speaking, you don't want to put every card in your deck that makes the game better or that seems like a fun idea to you, right? But if you sort of abide by this rule coming from having just put like every card you see in your deck, you will start doing a lot better. And of course, the true best way to play isn't actually just taking as few cards as possible. It's putting a lot of thought into your card choices and deciding if the card's value is worth its place in your deck. But sort of the initial culling process of this, I would say, sort of makes the game a little less fun, right? And this isn't the only example I can find. Another example is in Fallout New Vegas. Sorry, I just flipped my phone around to make sure I was still recording. In Fallout New Vegas, it's not any kind of game where you're expected to min-max, but I think a lot of players can relate to me in that you can't really help but min-max. And in that game, charisma is one of the stats you can choose, but it really doesn't make sense to choose charisma as one of your like strong special attributes, because if you go intelligence gives you skill points that you can then put into all of your charisma stats anyway. So unless your goal is to create a really like strong charismatic character, in which case you would go for both intelligence and charisma, then you always want to dump stat charisma because you can hit like whatever minimal level of charisma you want in the game to play it properly, right? And that's basically the optimal way to play it. And I'd say the less competitively designed a game is, the more it can suffer from this problem. And the two games I just mentioned, it's like an indie single player game and a triple A single player game. And these games, are not designed sort of to be like robust competitive experience. They're just to have fun. You can strategize with them as much as you want. But I feel like there's this problem where the closer you get to actually playing the proper way, the further away you get from like the endless possibilities that so many games claim to have. And it's true. And I know it's just a buzzword, but you're thinking when you're looking at the marketing for a game, you're seeing endless possibilities, and you're thinking, you know what? Maybe there really are endless possibilities, and you consider that as a real sort of valuable replayability asset that the game has. But if you play the game and you find out that it has endless possibilities, but many of those options are not good, and it's pretty easy to see they're not good, and the better you get, the more you find yourself doing the same thing over and over again, it becomes a dull experience. And in my mind, it sort of seems like a backwards reward loop thing, because games should be designed to reward skill, but this is sort of something in game design that I think is just hard to plan around, because it's sort of like an abstract thing that just happens when you become good at a game, right? Like if you're like a chess grandmaster or whatever, I'm sure that in certain situations there are many more moves that are wrong than there are good. And that's just like the way that games work. If you're using your brain, only a few options are ever good, right? But I just think it's a big problem with game design that I think could be worked around better. But I think part of the reason it's not is because games, they don't have to appeal to that audience of, I don't know what the percentage is, but I imagine it's the minority of people that they can't help but min-max the games they play. And I'm one of these people. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily good at it, but, after the first few hours, it's just like, oh, what is this game? Testing it out. I start trying to figure out strategies to optimize things, or at least experiment so I can get to the level of optimization. And I feel like games typically aren't designed to necessarily reward this kind of behavior as much, because obviously, you will get better quicker if you do this, but it will often come at the cost of just like ignoring an entire set of mechanics, or ignoring everything like that isn't related to your specific strategy, right? But sorry, like I just feel like games could be made in a way in which everything is always at least somewhat good, and you always have to think about it at least a little bit, at all levels, right? And I think that's an element of game design that isn't really talked about much, because I guess it's kind of nuanced, and it's also probably hard to do, because if you're trying to make a game that's fun for everyone, but you're like appealing to this very specific problem that only a specific set of players has, you're probably not going to be able to find a very good middle ground there. And the solution to that is probably just going to be, just making it appeal to as many players as possible, which is always going to be like, okay, we're going to have some options in here that are bad, but they're fun, right? And, I think that scattershot approach of, make different sort of things in the game for different player archetypes. Like there was a Magic the Gathering sort of designer, right? He's one of the head designers on this game, and he has been for like 20 plus years. One of the things he mentioned is that you make cards, that are not good, that are probably not going to be playable in any formats in Magic the Gathering, but they appeal to certain players. And, that's how you give your game broad appeal, is you include things that everyone will like. And, this is sort of a counter argument to my argument, and that's that basically the tool of including variety, so that there's something for everyone, is sort of a stronger reason to have things that will not appeal to everyone than trying to make a game where everything always appeals to sort of the competitive aspect of that game. And I don't really know how to resolve this, because of course you want things that will make, a certain archetype of person, like sorry, I'm not giving any examples, it's probably hard to understand what I'm saying. Say that, someone really likes big monsters, they just want to play the biggest monster possible. So you give them this huge, like 20 power, 20 puffness, 20 toughness dinosaur that's just stomping around with trample, right? And it seems really strong, but in reality, it costs 10 mana, and you're never going to get that out in a normal game of Magic, right? And even in decks where you can get to 10 mana, there's going to be better options. This player doesn't care. This person that likes big dinosaurs doesn't care about that, though, because it's a big dinosaur and it's huge and it does a lot of damage if you cast it right. And, I think appealing to those kind of players is good, because you need to make your game grow no matter what kind of game it is. But I feel like sort of a place that you could find even more strength in your game that makes it more replayable and stronger as time goes on is figuring out how to do that while not making options in the game that are garbage from a min-maxy perspective or a competitive perspective. And I started this out as a rant, but I'm honestly curious if anyone has any game suggestions or has sort of any counter argument or thought or comment on this, because I am personally interested in this, because I play a lot of, I think, different kinds of games. I play shooters, play indie games. I played MOBAs. I played Smash. I've played some standard fighters. I've played Minecraft, whatever. I've played a lot of games, right? Played Baldur's Gate, so I get in with that old school crowd. Um, but I feel like this is something that exists in most games. Is there is this distinct division between things that are fun and things that are good, right? And there's sometimes overlap, but there is almost never complete overlap. And if there is, it's probably like a really, really simple game. So, this is just a thought I had in my mind, and I'm curious if anyone has any comment on this. I would honestly love to hear what you have to say, because it's something I'm really interested in. I'm not a game designer. I'm just a player, but it's a thought that's been eating away at me for a while, because it's a problem I always run into, where I start to get deeper into a game and I feel like I'm funneled into less fun options, or I'm forced to select fewer things. And maybe this is just a force of this is just how it plays out. This is just something built into the way games work that you can't get out of them. But that's what I'm curious about. And I'm sorry this has been so long and rambly. I just wanted to talk about something, and I sort of talked about it as it was developing in my head. But I think I did a decent job of articulating it, so I'm probably going to post it anyway. One more time, let me know what you thought on the subject. Thanks.